You can't trust the D2. You never know what kind of devious things it could be up to.
That's true. That's true. That's why it had to be sealed in plastic for your protection.
But do you know what's really devious?
What's that?
It's the No Class Podcast with your hosts, Eddie.
And Matt.
Who's that?
Matt.
It's
The No Class Podcast.
with your host, Eddie.
And Matt.
How
Vujade.
many times would you do that?
Vujade. Well,
If I kept throwing them out, how many times would you do that?
I think about that time I was going to start laughing enough that it would ruin it and or, give you the stank eye.
Hey, so how's it been? It's been so long since we've podcasted.
I know it's been forever and a day.
It's just been a day and a day.
I know. To our dear listeners, they haven't heard from me, at least for a while, and they were probably thankful for that. But, sucker. Anyway, here I am. I'm back, baby.
They didn't know you had the brown bottle sickness.
The brown bottle flu, sir. Get it right.
For you, it's the sickness.
I was drunk as a skunk. I was drunk and cooter brown, as we'd say in the country.
So we recorded one of these fine podcasts on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
This is our typical Thursday to record.
Yes, our typical Thursday.
And I have not had any chance to edit on the previous one because there's some really exciting and fun things that I can do with that episode.
Oh, okay.
So this one might come out first. We'll see.
Oh.
This is when we need to be a video podcast again for that look that Matt gave me.
Oh, yeah. It's like...
But there is some I can't even say non-Matt embarrassing stuff because there is another Matt. But that Matt does not, I don't think he can be embarrassed. So I don't think we have to worry about that.
Let's find out.
So there is some good Matt C related stuff that I can put on there.
Oh, okay.
Without breaking
good.
any rules or FCC violations or whatever you want to say.
Right. I think he likes being violated.
There is one on there, it might be spoilerific, where someone says this is the best RPG con of all. Says the long con's the best one of all.
Wow. Is it anybody that counts?
Yes.
Wow.
It could get him banned from the convention circuit entirely, but I think it's worth risking. I'll put it on there.
Wow. Okay.
If I can get off my butt and do this editing. I've been really busy the last few days, believe it or not.
No. He actually has. For a retiree, he's been quite busy. And he's a model son-in-law.
So last time we decided to break this up, we didn't really do the pop culture thing.
Yeah.
So this one, I guess, technically should go in front of the other one if we were doing the A and B thing. Mm-hmm. But I'll probably just cheap out depending on how long it is. Mm-hmm. If we can stretch this one out long enough, it'll be its own episode.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what episode number this is right now. We're somewhere in the 50s.
But not really.
Not really what?
Well, how can we be in the 50s if we haven't done the 50th yet?
Space magic.
That's right. I love it. I like it.
And then the last one that we did without you, that was not counted in the numbering scheme. So think about that.
I like that. That makes me feel a little bit better.
See?
There you go.
We couldn't have one that was numbered.
That's right.
Without you. That would just be wrong.
Highly inappropriate. All right. You know what's sad? I've been away for so long, I've forgotten the format pretty much. Other than first, we always talk about long con, but we've already talked about long con.
But
ad nauseum.
Our good friend Jonathan out in California would hate it if we did not talk about the long con. Because I know there are some people out there, a few people listening that are like, I will probably never make it to the long con. So that part of the show is not a highlight for me.
I'll tell you what, I'll put it out there, buddy. If you ever decide to make the trip, I'll give you a free ticket to the con. I'll pay for it myself.
Easy peasy.
There you go.
All right. And I'll up it because Matt is really bad at these giveaways. I'll give you a free room.
Wow. You're just Mr. Generous these days with rooms.
But Jonathan, our buddy out in California, he just received our generosity.
He did?
Because he was the one that wrote in and gave us some fantastic feedback. And for that, we rewarded him with a couple of shirts, a Barbarians book,
ooh la la,
and some other long con swag.
Wait a minute. So you mean if you're a loyal listener and you actually, we beg, nay, plead for feedback and you give it to us, we'll reward you.
Oh, we do, and big time.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Jonathan would tell you it's very much worth your effort to write something, give us some feedback.
Yeah,
and get that big box of swag.
Right on. Yeah, cool.
So,
all right, way to go, man.
Never say never. You never know when you could end up at the long con.
That's
especially
right.
Since now, the completely backwards in the podcast order. This will probably be episode 53, I think. But it'll be out of cycle. The one we recorded previously, which would have been 53, will be 54, and stuff that we talked about on that and said, oh, we can't talk about that now. Now we can talk about it, so it won't be it'll be a spoiler, or you won't have to live a life of mystery. You'll just be like, oh, this is what they were talking about.
But I mean, you know, when you really think about it, we've had people from Iowa attend, people from Houston, Austin, Shreveport, Bossier. I dare say we have more attendees from far-flung places, Dallas and whatnot, than we do locals. But you know what? Why do we do this again? Because we love to interact with these people, the friends we've made. Yeah, love of the game, the friends we've made, and the new friends we make via the con. So
speaking of our somewhat new friend, new in the grand scheme of life, we can say our special guest for LongCon 2022 is the
Brendan LaSalle
of
Goodman Games,
who wrote the modules
that I love. But no, everyone knows one of my favorite is Hole in the Sky, and Brendan wrote that, and that's just, it hits all the right beats. But I won't belabor that. If you listen to the cast, you know that I really like Brendan's, just a lot of stuff he's done, you know.
Yeah, and I'm going to try and twist our buddy Gary's arm and get him to run some X-Crawl with me.
Ooh la la.
Because I've wanted to do that one with basically an announce desk.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll be the other announcer with me, like the color commentator.
The color guy, yeah.
So that could be a lot of fun. We just have to see if Gary's up for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Or, yeah, you're the commentator. You're the color guy. He's the commentator, whatever, but that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to GM anything. You don't have to make any rulings. You just need to make smart aleck remarks as I'm going along.
Yeah. But no, that'll be great.
Which you'll be perfect for.
And it's interesting, before Ed even knew who Brendan LaSalle was, he was a fan of the X-Crawl, the jam, you know. Yeah.
And we'll probably get our good buddy David Beatty to come down again.
Yep.
So if you're in that Goodman Games, DCC, MCC, Weird Frontiers world, we've got it all for you, baby.
Yeah, yep. We have a strong showing of Goodman Games products and derivatives, for sure.
Which, if you think about how close the long con was, since we're doing this out of order, the long con was dead, laying there on the ground, and we gave it CPR back to life.
Oh, yeah, we can allude to it now, and they have to wait till...
Yeah, so this is a backwards spoiler.
But yeah, we dish some dirt on how that played out.
Yeah, that's really good. And once again, Project 200 or something along those lines, we're going to try and have our own little initiative to where we advertise and we get our numbers up. Not that was what was killing us. You'll get to listen to that other episode and find out. Yeah. But that having the numbers definitely helps secure our future.
Yeah, I mean, if you come, and you should come, definitely buy a room. If you buy a room, make sure they know it's long con. Buy it via the rate. Even if, and I doubt you could, we're going to get an insane rate, but if you go, I'm going to go to Travago or something, that's not going to get us credit, which is what helps us maintain the facility that we get it, you know. Buy food there, buy drinks there, absolutely.
We've got to make them want us.
Yeah. Here's nothing else. Even just make sure this very first time, if we knock it out of the park, we probably the good, you know, you can never make a second impression. I mean, never second chance at a first impression.
It's kind of like laying the tiles. You lay them right the first time, you walk on them for a lifetime.
There you go.
That's what we're trying to do here. Help us out, folks. But into our pop culture, what we would start with would be books and comic books. You got any of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. I will be back after the break, folks. Please continue.
So Hawk the Slayer is getting the comic treatment. And so that's a movie that apparently is like deep in the nerd.
Beloved. But you missed out on it.
I missed out on it. I never even knew about it until just in the last few years when I made it a thing to try to really go and find a lot of those old beloved fantasy sci-fi, really crappy B movies from the 80s and early 90s that have that flavor. And I discovered Hawk the Slayer. And I think this one was like, oh yeah, my wife watched it when she was a kid. That's been a thing I've known about forever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, interestingly enough, we mentioned Hawk the Slayer on it more than once, I think, on the podcast. Anyway, it's getting the comic treatment, so look for that comic. Number 2, I was over every time I go to Dallas, I can't help but swing by Half Price Books to get, to check it out, find something interesting. I buy a handful of books. There was what would what it's called? Like when it's all these different issues on one big compendium or whatever. It's anyway, there was like a big compiled bunch of these comics called Wasteland, just Wasteland. And the art's pretty good. The story's not bad. I'm about halfway through it. It's thick, and I'm really enjoying it. So when I get to the end, I'll give you all the full rundown. I'm about halfway through. I'm enjoying it so far. So it's kind of, this isn't so much comic related, but
is it an actual book or is it into the TVs and movies?
Yeah, we're kind of into the TV and movies.
All right, wait for it.
I'm waiting for it. Go for it.
So the comics that I haven't read a lot of comics lately. So the one I can recommend to you is Thor God Storm, which is really a throwback to the 80s Thor comics. If you were reading back in the comic days, and I'm trying to think, the guy's name just went out of my head. Walt
Disney.
Son. But anyway, he was the guy that wrote a bunch of the classic stuff in the 80s. He came back and wrote this 3-issue arc. And it's basically like, here's a story set in the Viking past, and then there's another story. Geez, I'm trying to think when that one even took place in the past. And then there's one current day, and it's talking about tradition and honor through this Viking family and coming through, and kind of how that family met Thor 3 different times throughout history. This is very interesting. And the God Storm is when Thor first became master of the storms. Mm-hmm. So the storm that rebelled. That was a cool title to me of the very first book. So it's the story of this storm that refused to obey Thor because Loki, of course, got in his ear and told him all this stuff like, Thor's really just treating you as a slave, blah, 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 blah. So it's the complete story of that. How did that work out? The storm turns against him, and then Thor does this, then it reappears, and then it gets resolved at the end, and Loki gets his comeuppance as always.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it was actually a pretty good book, and it's only 3 comics long, so check that out if you're interested.
Short arcs are sometimes a little better,
And another one that, a book that will probably get its own podcast is the Game Wizards.
The Game Wizards.
Which is the story of D&D, the very beginning, when it was a $300 idea. That amused me right there.
Yeah.
They didn't think the rights to Dungeons & Dragons would ever be worth more than $300 because of all the little war game pamphlets that they'd published. Mm-hmm. They were like, an idea like this is probably worth around $300.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy.
You just never know. But previously I had gotten, and then you read Empire of Imagination, and that was really interesting. And so I'm kind of excited to read the Game Wizards.
Yeah, I almost have to go back and read Empire of Imagination again.
Yeah, I'm kind of like,
nobody is a complete good guy or a bad guy. Everybody's got their shades of gray, but it's kind of like, well, did your personal feelings about Gary Gygax go up or down after you read Empire of the Imagination?
Well, after Empire of the Imagination, there were things I didn't know, like when he went to Hollywood trying to sell TSR and D&D concepts, like he got into they made it sound like the cocaine and hookers or whatever. Yeah. So then I thought, ugh. But then I heard that, like, I didn't know he was identified as a Jehovah's Witness and had been a relatively devout Christian or whatever. And remember, he was without sin cast the first stone. So I mean, it was interesting. I won't say that he went necessarily up or down, but it was interesting to learn some of these bits about him and some things about Ernie. He took Ernie with him, and Ernie kind of went down a dark path for a while when he went out to California, Hollywood, So very interesting read. So I can't wait to see because this has also got more Arneson in it, right?
Oh yeah.
Because they were there at the beginning.
And what do you think? I mean, about Arneson?
Well, Arneson seems to me has never gotten his credit, and I always worry if you ballyhoo him too much, there are certain people that will get mad at you because they'd be like, "Are you trying to diminish that this was Gary Gygax's baby or whatever?" And it's like, hold up, Gygax definitely deserves a ton of credit, and he was there at the beginning. And you might say he took what was a great idea by Arneson, and he took that spark and blew it into a bonfire and blew it up and made it what it is today. But still, where do you get that spark from?
So I will say, after you read that book, you may have some changed opinions.
Interesting.
Because I definitely do, which I don't want to give out and spoil it and color your read of the book.
Yeah. Well, I know that I've heard that they kind of felt out members of the family that I guess ran out to read it or got an advance copy, and they didn't go, "This is bonk," or "How dare my father's legacy." So I guess it doesn't poop all over Gygax.
No, I don't think there's anything that you could go, "That's slanderous." Like, oh yeah, he used to bathe in the blood of virgins or something like that. Where you're like, what? But one thing, I guess, that I don't know how spoilerific it was, but since you kind of brought it up, both Gygax and Arneson were both extremely religious. Yeah. When you think about how all the satanic panic came through, and it's like, well, those are two people that you really wouldn't. I mean, it's not like Anton LaVey came out with the game or something like that, where you're like, hey, there's Satanists behind this. It was like, there are good Christian values or whatever you want to say behind it.
Well, that's one of the things that came out that struck me in Empire of the Imagination was Gygax was really upset. It really hurt his feelings. I mean, he was disappointed that people hung that on his game, because he was like, I'm a Christian, identify as a Christian. He identifies as a Jehovah's Witness, you know.
Well, he quit gaming at one point because of that.
Yeah.
Because people were making fun of, this is in the early like chainmail days, but where he quit gaming because people were, I don't want to say making fun of him, but harassing him for being identified as a Christian or whatever. Wow. So it was like,
interesting. Yeah. And you would have figured that would be nowadays, not back then, but who knows? But anyway, so that's food for thought. I'm looking forward to reading the book, and hopefully we can really rap about it more.
Yeah.
So we're teasing some different things right now.
All right. That brings us to TV. You got TV?
I got TV, buddy. I got TV. Okay. So because it's kind of, I don't know, comic-y to me. So Cowboy Bebop, Netflix has done a live-action version of that.
Now, did you watch the anime back in the day?
I'd watch anime back in the day and loved it. I have so much fondness for that. That was a ringtone on my phone for a long time, was Tank, the intro music. So I held it at too high expectation.
So I have watched maybe one or two episodes here and there. I'm not into it. I'm definitely casual. It's not like I hate it. I'm ignorant of it.
And so
for the most part.
Are you talking about the old anime?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So loved the anime back in the day. I've watched one episode of the new Netflix live action. It just didn't do it for me, you know, but I know like our buddy Fergie, he was ballyhooing it and whatever.
I think Ron liked it too, enjoyed it as well.
And that's great. I think if you like it, great. But what's sad is they've already decided to cancel it after one season, which goes to show you Netflix can see how many times something's being watched. And so, I mean, you know, but maybe all this, apparently there's a petition making the rounds, and people are like trying to save it. And so maybe just doing that will get enough attention, more people will watch it, and they might do a second season. But I hate to be, if you're hearing it here first, sorry to tell you, but it's due to be canceled, but a petition is circulating. Find it on the internet, sign off on it. Maybe you can help save it. You know.
Do you want it saved? Have you watched just one episode?
I watched just one episode. And I mean, what that says is the hook wasn't set. I wasn't that impressed. I like Cho, who's playing Spike Spiegelman or whatever.
Isn't he a little old for that, though?
Yeah. And then the guy who's playing the other bounty hunter that's on the ship with him, whatever. Guy's doing a great job of it. I like the guy they picked. Great look. But it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's sometimes some things are better off, you know. I'll go watch the anime.
I watched the first episode of the anime the other day because I probably will watch the first episode because Ron's like, hey, it was pretty good. Mm-hmm. So when somebody gives me that little, hey, review this sort of thing, I will at least check it out. So I wanted to watch a little bit of the anime so I have something coming into it. And if there are any spoilers, I'd rather see it in the anime first. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'll probably check it out. But apparently this is one of the things the internet hates.
Yeah,
so I don't expect
I've heard people either they love it or they hate it.
Now, just while we're in the, I guess, gossip portion of this, do you have it already?
I don't know, maybe, but yeah.
So your favorite show in the world is going to be coming back. They are talking about Disney is going to bring back Firefly. Disney. They're not bringing back the original cast.
Obviously. I figured that, yeah.
They're going to change up some things to be more in line with Disney, like the courtesan, the lady of the shuttle, that will not be her profession anymore if that character returns.
Wow.
So I don't know what it will be, but there's some other stuff like that they're going to quote unquote clean up to make it a little bit more family friendly.
Needs to be cleaned up. I mean, whatever. Okay. Leave it to Disney to shit on something that's perfectly fine. Then don't bring it back if you're not going to do it justice.
Yep.
Yeah, anyway.
So I like Firefly. I'm not one of the most passionate fans. I like it.
I'm one of those.
But this is one of those times where it's like that corpse should probably be left unfrankensteined.
Right. I think that moment's passed. I would love to have had more seasons, but the cast has got too old, and a new cast, no. Whatever. But this, again, Disney is all about like, hey, that beloved shit from your youth or childhood, we're going to get our hands on it and we're going to shit all over it. I mean, look what they did to Star Wars and
fiery.
Whatever. And it's like you think about, like, I've heard they want to get, I think they have access to rights to Indiana Jones, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's been all kind of poo-poo over that. They're going to bring Harrison Ford back, who was too old, or they were going to bring back Chris, what's his name? And people are in uproar about that because he's way too nice a person. How dare he get the privilege or something, whatever, So anyway, carry on.
Okay. You got any more shows? I'm sure you do.
This is shows, right? Not movies.
TV shows.
TV shows.
Because I'll give you one that you're going to want to talk about.
F is for Family.
Exactly. That's the one.
There's a new season.
A final season.
Oh, is it the final?
This is it.
I did not know that. Oh, wow. But I laughed, period. But I think it's good that they're ending it, though.
Well, yeah, because I was looking at, as I had heard this was the last season or whatever, I was looking up some of the longest running shows like The Simpsons, and it's like, that should have been done with so long ago. So there is something to going out on top.
Family Guy, American Dad, some of those are just long in the tooth, and it's like, yeah. So no, I've loved it. I've laughed at every season. This was a worthy season, but I was thinking, so I didn't know, so last time I was thinking, you know what, this would be a good time to call it. So I didn't even know that.
You watched the whole thing?
Oh, I devoured it.
Okay,
I love
so
it.
there's some warm learning moments at the very end, I guess. So they did wrap it up with a nice little bow, I think. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good place to stop.
A little bit of a warm fuzzy.
I thought it was a really good season.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it was. Maybe like a season 3 or something like that, where I was like, that one wasn't as good overall. It's definitely worth watching. They've all been good seasons, but there was one that was more of a lull. But I thought the last season was really good. They could have kept going.
There are some belly laughs, but yeah.
So on to the next. You got any more shows?
No shows, sir. Just movies.
All right. Then I will say I have been re-watching Generation Kill, which I don't know if you have watched that one or heard of that one. I'll say that one's probably 10 years old, but it's about a Rolling Stone reporter who goes out with the Marines invading Iraq. And it's more like a Band of Brothers sort of thing, but more into that modern time period. And riding around in the unarmored Humvees. So I have always enjoyed that one, and HBO Max has given me a chance to rewatch a lot of shows, kind of like going back through The Sopranos. That one's probably 8 episodes or something like that, so I highly recommend it.
But this is real, or is this like fiction?
It's fiction. It's based on the true story.
Okay, that sort of thing. Interesting. And it's called
Generation Kill.
Generation Kill. All right.
And I've also been watching Silicon Valley, which is a comedy on HBO, which a lot of people said if, Big Bang Theory was a little bit more realistic about the nerdy culture and such, this is what it would be. So I would agree with that. I would say it's worth checking out. It's more of a, I guess, supposed to be kind of real sort of thing, like the real story of them founding a internet startup company and the things that they go to. So it's pretty funny. There's always a cliffhanger. There's always a new disaster on the horizon. So it's, what is it? If it's self-contained, it would be episodic. Well, this one has a big ongoing story. So I recommend it to you. It's pretty funny. What is it? I think this guy got in a lot of trouble, TJ Miller. So I'm late to the party on that. I guess it was like, I guess it's a good thing I found it now instead of before, so I wasn't like, I've ruined my opinion of that guy.
Yeah.
But
no, from all accounts, he sounds like a real POS.
But
he's hilarious.
Funny in that. He's funny in Deadpool.
No, I've seen him in a number of things. I guess the guy's funny. He absolutely is funny. I mean, I'm not taking that away from him, but he, from all accounts, is just a tremendous, huge flapping D-bag. But anyway. Yeah.
Right. So, check that out if you haven't. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Movies.
All right. So, here we go. All right. So, let's see. I guess even though this is not in the maybe chronological order that I watched them, but you remember the thing that I had posted to Facebook where it was going to be the rotoscope, and it was like, this is like taking drugs or whatever.
Did this movie just tell me to get high to watch it?
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
I watched it. I devoured it. Spine of the Night. I really liked it. I'm not saying that it changed my life, best thing ever, but I genuinely enjoyed it. And it was an interesting story, and I like rotoscope well enough. So I know some people, it's kind of a love-hate. The old Rankin Bass, some of that stuff they did in rotoscope. And then, no, not Rankin Bass, but what's the guy?
Yeah, they did, because they did the Lord of the Rings stuff.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, but they did that, I think, with the guy Bakshi, whatever. So anyway, Bakshi. But anyway, Spine of the Night, I enjoyed it. It's got voice work by Lucy Lawless of Xena fame. It's got Joe
Spartacus.
Yeah, it's got Joe Manganiello, if I'm pronouncing his last name, I hope.
Manganiello.
Yeah, he does the voice of Mongrel, and then and there's some interesting lines in the movie. I really like some of the lines. They were just really like, mwah. What's the Patton Oswalt plays like the ineffectual, son on the throne of, anyway, but the voice acting is good. They got some actual people you've heard of. The story's pretty good. The animation is really interesting. The story's pretty cool. So yeah, Spine of the Night. In the same vein of Spine of the Night, you ever hear of Fire and Ice?
Just the song.
Yeah. And so Bakshi and Frazetta got together back in the 80s, and they did Fire and Ice, and the artwork's gorgeous. Again, the story's kind of meh, but it was really more about the animation, the style, and all that stuff. So yeah, anyway, that's a couple I watched. Okay, we've been doing some, like for the con, getting ready for the Weird West. I wanted to try to watch some Westerns, and I think I mentioned this in a podcast that we did before the con, Outlaw Josie Wales, because that's a classic Western. That's not Weird West, just West. But I watched Bone Tomahawk.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
No, but that's Johnny Depp, isn't it?
No. It's actually Kurt Russell.
Oh, okay.
But it's really weird, and it is West. It's got like, I can't think of his name, but the guy that played, like in The Watchmen, he was like the owl, like the kind of take on Batman kind of. He's in it as a character. And there's some other people that you might recognize. A lot of people you might not, but it's a decent story. I enjoyed it. I could sit through it and watch it, but it's a little weird, but I mean, it's not crazy weird. It's not like over the top weird, but but I enjoyed it, and then being sort of, for whatever reason, I hadn't seen this since like the early 80s when I was a kid, but on a goof, I found Damnation Alley, and I watched that. And you know what the best thing about that movie is? Jan Michael Vincent.
Did you jan down your Michael Vincents?
You know it. I was going to say, I had the Jan Michael Vincent fever. But anyway, yep. And that had old, the guy from the A-Team.
Templeton Peck?
I love it when a plan comes together. George Peppard. Yeah, George Peppard's in that too. And he plays this guy who's just a total D, whatever. But anyway, and it's, the special effects are crappy, but it is what it is. But it was based off of a really popular sci-fi book, by an author you've probably heard of. But anyway, and then I guess one more, A Clockwork Orange. I dusted that one off. I haven't seen that one since the mid-late 80s, and that's just so weird. Really weird. but that's
Not a fan.
Yeah, that's what's his name?
Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, Kubrick. Yeah. All right, so okay, there was all that.
You got more movies.
One more.
Okay.
I know you're over here. Would you like to butt in, then I can come back, or?
Oh no, you continue.
Okay. Well, it has
The
been
listeners are enraptured.
I'm sure. Well, okay. This I'm going to elaborate a little more. Okay, The Phantom Empire. It came out like 1988ish. You knew it was going to be great by the grainy rental quality VHS type feel of it. The first screen is Fred Ray letting you know that this is a true story. Swear to God, cross my heart, real. Signed, Fred Olin Ray. So you're like, who the hell's Fred Olin Ray?
The Fred Olin Ray?
Yeah. His early career was horror, later softcore TNA films when the 80s horror gore thing played out. So a guy gets his head ripped off in the first 5 minutes. I actually laughed my ass off. It's about all the gore in the movie and probably half the special effects budget. And it's really a super fake looking head. It's a lost world tale so bad it's almost good. Almost. Dinosaurs, cave bunnies, leather-clad alien queens. Sybil Danning, who at that time was the queen of the B movies, and Robbie the Robot with a different head shooting green lasers. In the shit you could never see in a movie today, and for good reason department, you have the Pedro in the trunk scene. Anyway, but yeah, it was.
I'm not going to ask you to elaborate.
And
I don't think you can.
I can't. It was awful. It was. I guess the kids nowadays say it was cringe. Like cringe worthy is I would. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But anyway, yeah. But if you want to watch a really goofy, sad, you'll probably laugh at more anything is The Phantom Empire. But probably just leave it alone. You're welcome. Okay.
Well, speaking of Westerns, I ended up watching Unforgiven again the other day, which that's always a fantastic one. That's one of the classics that whenever that's on TV or something, it's like, all right, I guess I'm going to do this for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, it's like Tombstone.
Just so good.
Yeah.
And so quotable.
Yeah.
Should have thought about that before you decorated your bar with my friend. All right, here is one for you, and I realize that we are on the podcast and not a video podcast, but I'm going to play something for Matt.
Oh my!
That was requested. This was played for me at the Long Con by our buddies the Lilies in that Barbarians game.
Okay.
So now I pass this on to you to get your reaction.
Okay.
Hold on, folks. This will be an exciting minute.
Should I say what I'm saying?
Vortum, Prince of Death.
It doesn't matter what you die for. Death is always near. The only difference is how you fight your last battle.
Wow, that was some epic claymation.
Price of Death.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I liked it. That was
Just off your initial...
just awesome claymation. Yeah.
Get used to hearing that song, by the way.
Okay.
They reuse that battle music a lot.
Okay.
But it's very low budget.
Uh-huh.
And if you actually watch the thing, you'll realize how low budget it is. But I think it was just two guys in Russia or something like that doing all this claymation. And it's a claymation battle royal where they're in this arena through pretty much the whole thing, and you get to know the characters a little bit and root for them, and then they die brutally.
Nice.
So
Vordrum,
I enjoyed
Price
it.
of Death. Yeah, it looks cool. I'm going to check the rest. So there's more to it, obviously.
Yeah, there's a whole hour 30 of it.
Oh, wow. Well, I'll check it out. Yeah, cool.
So, yeah, that one,
That's a
the
hot tip.
Lilies turned me onto it, and I said, well, I'll watch it and see what I think, and then at some point I'll surprise Matt with it. And this is one of the first chances I've had to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no. Hey, thanks, Jason and company and Gus and
Yeah, but the whole family, I think, enjoyed it.
Oh, well, I could see. No, it looks good,
I don't
clean,
think
fun.
Mom told me she liked it, but
What? I bet she did.
could have been.
You know, they were.
She's hardcore.
That's right. Duh.
So that movie I wanted to talk about, and then also, since I was stuck on a plane, I was watching F Family, and the other thing that I downloaded to watch was It Follows. What? It Follows, a horror movie. I think it's from 2015.
I thought that was going to be like a family Disney movie with them, like It Follows.
Oh, no. It's a horror movie.
Oh, my.
And
The horror.
it's sort of like The Ring, one of those where it's like if you watch that videotape, you're screwed. This one's if you screw somebody, you're screwed.
Oh, my.
The person that you... It's kind of like the ring girl would be following you around because you had sex with somebody. And the only way to get rid of her is to have sex with somebody else. And then she'll follow them until she kills them or they have sex with somebody else.
Oh, my.
And that was the most boring, least scary crap I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It has all these critical raves, but it bored me out of my mind. So if anybody out there is really into that movie, It Follows, go ahead and let me know. Or if you saw it and you hated it, let us know. Or maybe you'll save your time.
Yeah.
But for some reason, just for the titles or whatever, it's like, I think that one was Let the Right One In, which was about the kid vampire. That one I really enjoyed. So I'll give you that one as one that I enjoyed as a kind of counterbalance here.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for movies. Cool?
Cool. Little faddle.
So you got any games?
Well, I haven't been playing any games because I've been trying to focus on other things. But as far as some interesting video game news that I found, 2021 marks the 60th anniversary of the character written by Michael Moorcock, who is a Texan, originally a Brit. The character known as Elric, the character from the Kingdom of Melniboné, will celebrate this momentous occasion with the announcement of a new audio-visual adaptation adventure in the form of a narrative action game that will be based on the first 6 books of the Elric saga, which I think is interesting. I always really loved that character in those books. You notice they only used the first 6 books. Everything in the last been written since the 70s is like, you know.
Because it's still him writing it, right?
Yeah, he's still alive. He's here in Texas, down near Austin.
That's what I thought. It's not like his son is writing those books now, like so many, like Dune and Lord of the Rings.
Anything for you on video games? Video games?
You know it, but I've been trying not to play as much either. I've probably already talked about Dark Quest, which is kind of a hero quest in video game form. It's very much like the board game Board, and the characters look more like that. So definitely check it out if you need more Hero Quest, since Hero Quest just got re-released by Hasbro.
Which is cool.
I finally picked up Gloomhaven, the video game.
Oh, I didn't know I had a video game.
Yeah, it's fairly new. And I've got like 2 copies of Gloomhaven floating around here, so I figured I should figure out how to play it.
Yeah.
So I'm basically using the video game to teach me how to play the board game.
So it follows the board game pretty closely.
That's what I have heard.
Interesting.
So we'll see how that blends together. Let's see. Oh, and I know we have talked about Mortal Shell.
I played that.
Did you play it some and then go, eh?
Yeah, it was okay, but I played it some. It's got a little hint of that flavor of Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's quite Dark Souls. If you like Dark Souls, you might like this. If you have been interested to try a Dark Souls-like game, it is free right now on PlayStation Plus. So check that one out. And that's it for me for games.
Okay.
Now, do you have anything else? This is where I would normally talk about the first edition club.
Which you guys are not meeting.
But we're
in that
not
capacity.
playing. We've kind of taken the holidays off. And we are talking about gathering back together for Green Ronin's Song of Ice and Fire.
Which is one we got to play with So years ago, and we had some fun with it.
Very, very fun.
So is an excellent game master. So a little bit of gaming world gossip.
Wrong.
What?
Wrong. Stop cutting me off here.
I'm so sorry.
Here's one I was going to ask you. Other than, say, Game of Thrones, the TV show, and Avatar, the movie, what are some other things that have dropped out of pulp culture that fast? Because think back to the ending of the Game of Thrones series. How long ago does that feel like now?
Like a year ago?
It's 2 years or more.
Wow.
But for me, that feels like ancient history.
Yeah.
That it had happened some lifetime ago.
Mm-hmm.
But think about how much the Game of Thrones merch dried up in that time after people were very displeased with the ending.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that last season left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths.
Because, like, look at Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to go on freaking forever now, it seems like. And then the movies only solidified that and brought it back into pop culture that much more.
Right.
And you can still go out and buy Lord of the Rings movie stuff. Like, here's a replica sword of this or that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure somewhere out there, if you look for it, is Game of Thrones, but it's nowhere near in your face the way it was for, how long did that show go on? 10 years or more?
Well, I mean, between Lord of the Rings, those movies doing well, they might have helped set the groundwork, and then those shows did so good on HBO, that really kind of, I think that's part of what helped propel fantasy and whatnot, and that sort of, those concepts more into the pop culture, like you're saying, to where a lot of people before that would not have been at all interested in something like that.
But
are
think
now.
about how much of a lasting tale Game of Thrones has. When was the last time you heard somebody other than me talking about Game of Thrones, right? Since we're talking about playing the game.
True. I mean, no, you make a good point. I mean, 1 minute, people at the water cooler at work would be like, oh, my God, what Tyrion did last night with those hookers. Or what? And then now it's like, no one's talking about Game of Thrones. Yeah, I mean, you make an excellent point.
Kind of like the movie Avatar.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a huge blockbuster. Like, think about how much you talked about Star Wars back in the day.
Yeah.
You were still jibber-jabbering about Star Wars for years and years and years. But Avatar...
But I will say, every so often I hear they're going to do a second one. They're going to do another one.
Yeah, that's almost the only news you hear. The only time that Avatar comes into the collective conscience again is rides at Disney, which they have, or like, hey, the second one, third one are being filmed right now, or there's news they want to make 6 of them.
Well, and it's kind of like riding in the car with my ex and my ex, I guess, stepson. I love him to death. He's a fine young man, but we'd be playing if we're riding my vehicle, we're playing my music, and he'd be like, burr, 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 you know, whatever. And I'm like, son, this song is a classic. People still listen to this music now. They've been listening to it since this song came out, 70s, 80s, whatever. But he loved, current pop songs. But I'm like, I'd listen to stuff I'd go, you think this is great, but I guarantee you 3 years from now, if you mention this song or even probably the artist, people would go, huh? I mean, a lot of stuff is flash in the pan crap, you know.
What an old man you are today.
I know.
Because, I mean, I think like people that are listening to Taylor Swift today are going to be listening to Taylor Swift in 20 years.
Well, I mean, she's had more than one album and she's had more than one hit. I mean, some of this stuff that's like, if you turned on one of these pop stations, oh, it's the hottest, coolest thing. Well, case in point, the little Korean guy doing the little galloping song with the dance in the video. Comes out. When's the last time you've even thought about it?
That was always a novelty song, though.
Okay, but I mean, but it was hot shit.
That was like, when was the last time you heard about Disco Duck?
Yeah, I played that the other day. You know, I mean,
But think about this one: when you were in the '80s, listening to the '60s classic rock, that's closer now than like, say, listening to some Blink 182 for the kids.
Wow, hard to believe, but yeah.
Or like some, like Baby Hit Me One More Time.
Yeah. Wow.
You're getting further away from that, so they're like, dude, that's your grandpa stuff.
Wow.
So think about that and not going to be listening to it in 20 years. There's, like, what is it, NSYNC?
Yeah.
And those are kind of making that resurgence, at least that their fans are getting older and they have the money to go, like, we're going to go buy those $100 concert tickets now or whatever it is.
And go see them in
Vegas
Vegas
do that
or
circuit.
something. Yeah.
So as far as the music goes, screw you, Matt. You grumpy old bastard.
That's Mr. Grumpy Old Bastard.
The original point, though, was things that have flared out of pop culture so fast that it's just like freaking Halley's Comet or something. It's like, man, it was here and it was big, and wait. Because, I mean, people are still talking about The Walking Dead because it's still on, but not as much. But I wouldn't say that it's flamed out as much as Game of Thrones did.
Yeah. Well, it didn't help having a really crappy last season.
Exactly. So it's like not a lot of people want to go back and watch it, which I did. People aren't suggesting it all the time, like, hey, you got to go check this out. You got to go check this out.
I think that left such a bad taste, really bad taste, apparently. And that's really a shame for really what was it's a great series of books, if ever that asshole would ever finish them, you know. And it was a good show, but yeah, that last season just kind of pooped the bed, you know.
But I guess there's a new show coming out, which we kind of mentioned in some previous podcasts, I think. There's going to be one about the Targaryens.
Yeah, oh yeah. They were quick to try to scramble to capitalize on that popularity, you know.
So that's not what put it in my head. Us getting ready to go like, hey, maybe we'll play that Game of Thrones game. That's what put all this back in my head. And I went back and did a rewatch, and there was stuff that I skipped because I'm like, ugh. Like Arya. I skipped a bunch of the Arya stuff this time. It's not like I hate Arya, but it's not all that stuff in Bravos. It was not that exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm blind. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then I skipped most of the dark at night battles. I skipped pretty much anything that had the Night King because the Night King doesn't get involved. He's really not a big player in the whole thing. So, I don't know. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
It's still as good as it ever was up to the first 5 or 6 seasons. Back when GRRM is doing the writing and they can follow him. It's when they get past the books that it gets wacky.
But you know, there were a couple of times where he's changing things up just a little bit, and even George R.R. was like, you know what, I like what you did there. That's a little tighter or cleaner than what I did. Even so, I mean, there's a few times with the show, and there's like they left out a few characters like when they reanimated.
Lady Stoneheart or whatever.
Yeah, Lady Stoneheart or whatever. That's an interesting character, but it's kind of like, you know. That,
well, his problem is he keeps introducing characters as he goes. It's like, you're supposed to be wrapping this up, and he's expanding upon it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think his ending might be better, but will we ever get it? Maybe not.
And you know what? These guys swore they talked to him. This might be the bona fide absolute ending he intended, which would be hilarious if it was.
I think he denies it all now.
But now that he's seen how poorly it is, even if that was going to be it, you better believe it's not going to be it now. Otherwise, why go to the trouble? You know.
So what are your pop culture flameouts out there in the world? All right, now to you, Matt. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Just one little tidbit in gaming world gossip. Did you hear that? There's been now how many iterations of TSR? But TSR 3, which is that Lanasty guy or whatever.
Lanasty is right.
Yeah, they're suing WotC. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
luckily we didn't talk about this earlier because we went out and got a delicious barbecue lunch at Right On Taco.
Yeah.
So if you're in the sound of our voice, go check them out.
Yeah, Right On. And
but that was one of the things I was going to bring up to you is TSR 3 and.
Yeah. So I hear like 2 days later they withdrew the suit or whatever. But I think it's just grandstanding, posturing, bull crap.
There was something about that I heard like, yeah, they withdrew it, but they didn't withdraw it because it was wrong. They wanted to change something on it. So it's coming back. It's not gone.
Yeah. And then I heard that they had done like a GoFundMe as part of their battle, help us stand up, you know, like David and Goliath or whatever. And they were like, whatever monies we don't use will go to the Gygax Memorial Fund. And the GMF quickly came out and said, we wouldn't take that money from you if you begged us to take it. And so they quickly removed that little tidbit from the GoFundMe page.
Is that Memorial Fund run by Gail Gygax?
As far as I don't know. I don't know. I know originally there was that original fund that was overseen by Gail, and I wouldn't even touch that with a 10-foot
There's
pole.
all these little controversies surrounding that.
Yeah, because we've met Alex, love Alex to death, wouldn't want to say anything. And Ernie, but I was going to say it's Alex's mom, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say anything disparaging. You know, who knows, but.
Yeah, there's other podcasts to listen to for that.
Yeah, but anyway, because Alex is a sweetheart, really nice guy, and so was Ernie. We've met both of them. Both the guys we've met.
Fantastic.
I can't wait to hopefully meet Luke when we go to GaryCon, but get the full set, But
there's a couple of daughters to meet too. Then
absolutely. But do they come to GaryCon?
Maybe
because I know Luke puts it on. But anyway.
But does he put it on them to attend?
I don't know.
That would be funny.
But it is GaryCon. It is a celebration of their father and gaming. So it'd be nice to think that, say what you will, those Gygax girls, hey.
What was that? See, this is where we need a video podcast again so you can see the drool running down the side of his mouth.
Hush, sir. But anyway, apparently the kids' mom, the elder children, their mom was dynamite and a sweetheart to boot, from everything you hear. Is there any of that in that Wizards book? Do they allude to Mrs. The first Mrs. Gygax?
Not really. She was a TSR officer at one point, and this is where you go from. Geez, what were they before they were TSR?
I mean, they were always tactical studies rules, right?
There's a lot of different
Apparently there's more
things to that
history,
backstory
that comes out in
since
that.
it's been a few weeks since I've read the book now.
Yeah.
All this is starting to drop out, but
Yeah.
at some point in the early time, probably in TSR, she was one of the officers or what have you,
Yeah. Oh wow.
where she was in charge of some stuff.
Yeah.
So back to your TSR 3. I'm not saying I agree with their lawsuit, but the way TSR 3 is, they can almost say some stuff that you would agree with.
But you can't.
Like people should be allowed to drink water. Yeah, you need water to live. I agree with that. But who said it? Ugh.
Yeah.
There was the South Park, and I think I've alluded to this one before, where they had the Ku Klux Klan protesting something, and they're like, well, since everybody hates our side, why don't we just agree with whatever we don't like? We'll say, oh, we love that. That's a great idea. And that's almost where TSR 3 is to me, where it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
You could potentially come up with a good idea, but I just hate the people, pretty much the nasty behind it. It's
everything I've heard about this guy is just like, whew, and what a shame that Ernie is throwing his hat in with this guy, because Ernie seems like, from all accounts, from what I heard, what I've seen, having met the guy, just a sweetheart. I wish he would break company with this guy, but oh well. It's kind of like that nice kid growing up that ran with a bad crowd, and you're like, whatever.
We don't know all the full story.
Exactly.
So just from this very outsider sitting at a kitchen table in Longview, Texas.
Yeah, what do we know? But
he seems like a great guy, and nasty.
I'm sure someone
nasty.
could go, oh, you don't know. Well, no, I don't know, so I'm sorry.
Exactly.
But by all means, school me. Like I tell somebody the other day that was like, I don't appreciate your opinion on X. I said, well, then by all means, I'm a big boy. Tell me your side of it. And I sat there and listened to what they had to say, and I'm like, thank you for educating me in that regard. I wasn't aware of that. This is how things used to be, where we could win me over with an articulate, argument. Don't just say, you're stupid, you're an idiot because you've a different opinion from me. That's not going to win anything. Anyway, all right. So historically, when this used to be the crux of this podcast was gaming, or role-playing games or whatever.
We've lost the plot.
I know. But I will, just a quick
the
throw out
rails.
there, something I was ruminating on the other day, stat blocks in modules. We need them. I run modules for convenience. I believe we all do. Yeah, can you believe it? And I want more than bullet points. I have to flesh out, what am I paying for? But I've seen it's become the norm, kind of, where either one, some of these adventures are just like, well, here's a loose framework for you to flesh out. I can do that myself. I want a full-formed adventure, or give me stat blocks. And some of them, they don't give you the monster stat block in it. I don't want to have to flip to a book, or whatever. Give me the stat block in the adventure. In your opinion on that?
Highly agree.
All right.
But I think a lot of it that you see is so they can sell you the monster manual too, or what have you.
Well, of course, but again,
buy the other book so you can figure out what's going on.
The old school D&D modules, one of the things about it, and I remember this now that you mentioned that, was they would introduce a lot of new monsters in a module.
But they included the stats, but they didn't include the stats.
Yeah, they included the stats. There would be a new monster, and they'd include the stats in the adventure. So that way it's like, well, this is a completely, which the next monster man that would come out would have this monster stats in it.
No, I can't, sometimes it would do that, but there would be times back in the old classics where it's like, it's this monster. Better go get the Fiend Folio to find out what that is. And it's like,
I don't remember any of that, but I mean, okay.
Well, keep in mind, I've run some of the old school stuff more recently than you.
That could be it. Okay, cool. That's crazy. Because,
But I mean, yeah, if they created something completely whole cloth for that adventure, then yeah, it would be in there. But if it's something like, this is a new monster, but this new monster is in the Fiend Folio or Monster Manual 2, sometimes they would get you that way too.
But that's definitely one of the things that also they were better about, was like, I think they thought in their minds, like, well, why would they buy this module if we're not getting something cool and new? They almost always introduce one or two new monsters in a given module, which I think that was great back in the day,
And I would say pretty much it would be nice to get that in any adventure.
Yeah.
I know in my wonderful adventure, I put in some new stuff and not just like here's another goblin.
Yeah. What's that adventure again?
Kickstarter's closed, man.
Well, but still, they can dream, can't they?
You can dream about Carnage in the Casino.
Well, actually, you'll probably be able to buy it soon from the store at Goodman Games.
Yep.
Yeah, because they have quite a few copies.
And we'll see if it goes up on Drive-Thru RPG. That'll be another something for us to learn.
But now Eddie has thrown down the gauntlet, and now I have to get extra creative.
You don't have to.
No, I really need to.
If
I
you
want
don't want
to.
to.
I want to.
Caverns of the Dead God.
Yep. That's one I've been kicking around for a couple of years. And some people have had a chance to play it at our con, other cons, NTRPG, Red River. So I'm hoping to...
Reviled everywhere it's been.
Exactly. Universally despised.
People have brought torches to try and burn it down and
But they
kill
can't.
it.
They
It doesn't.
can't.
It keeps reappearing like a weed.
Exactly. Take that.
The beloved adventure, should I say. Right up there with the, what is it, Palace of Pandemonium?
Mansion of Madness, Palace of Pandemonium,
Yeah.
you know. Chateau of Chaos.
Chateau of Shittiness. They're coming to get me. Oh, no.
Ah, it's in my butt. Anyway, all right. Well, gosh, golly. Another long one.
Yeah, we should have wrapped this one up an hour ago.
I know.
But we know that you out there in Radio Land have enjoyed it.
And I've missed y'all so very much.
So very much. So in about 3 weeks when I upload this, you'll get all this goodness for Christmas.
Yay. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. All right. Do you see the clock on the wall?
Uh-oh. I think it says what is that?
All out of hit points.